Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Office Hours with Michael Kitces. So for the topic this week, I want to talk a little about digital marketing and blogging. As many of you know, I've been doing this for quite a while now, and so I get a lot of questions about what I've done, what works for me. So the question actually came in this week was from Mark, and Mark said, I've started a blog, but I'm finding the writing and publishing process to be more daunting than I'd expected. Can you share what's worked for you over the years? So a great question, Mark. This is definitely a journey I've gone through in some depth. The Nerd's Eye View blog's now over 6 years old. We've done more than 1,000 articles. But first and foremost, it's important to note that what you see on the blog now is frankly not how it always was. If you actually go all the way back to the articles at the beginning, you'll see articles that were not as thorough. They were less organized. There were no graphics and visuals. The schedule was very irregular. So the flow and the pace and kind of the structure that I have for it now is frankly something that I evolved into over time. And I'll admit there were some mistakes I made along the way and lessons I've learned that I'll try to share with you as we go through the discussion here. So as I look back, and here are my core top 5 tips of what I've found works, usually by things I did wrong originally and have learned in the process. So tip number 1 is create an editorial calendar with deadlines. So editorial calendar is really just a fancy label for a schedule of what you're going to publish and when. And I've found over time that having a schedule is crucial for having success in blogging and writing. And the reason is because once you have a schedule with a targeted date that you're going to publish something, you have a deadline. And the reality, deadlines make stuff happen, right? And there's actually growing research on this. It's called the goal gradient hypothesis, that the closer we get to a finish line or a deadline, the better we tend to focus and the harder we push ourselves. So that's how racers somehow get that final burst of energy closing in on the finish line, even if it's like literally at the end of a marathon. And if you have ever noticed, even in your own work context or with your maybe team, if you work in a team environment, it's nothing like a good deadline for everyone come together and make a collective push to get something done. And your editorial calendar helps out to do that. So it can start out something really simple, like I'm going to publish twice a month. Now, just saying twice a month isn't enough because that's very fuzzy. So I'm going to publish the second Friday of every month. I'm going to put it on my calendar. It's an appointment at the end of the day, so every second Friday, and I can't leave the office until I finish the article. And if you make that commitment to yourself, you know what's going to happen now? You're going to do what you have to do to get it done. Because you can't just say, I'll get around to it at some point. That happens with a loose goal. But when you have a concrete deadline, I'm going to publish something the second Friday of every month, the deadline forces it to be a priority, and making it a priority gets it done. So you might say every second Friday, you might say once a month, you might say once a week. You can set whatever schedule you think you can handle, but recognize the point of this is you're going to create a schedule for yourself and be accountable to it. So set something reasonable you can achieve, work up to it later if you want to increase the frequency over time. Now, if you start publishing a lot more regularly, your editorial calendar may get more complex. So if you look at something like Nerd's Eye View, we actually have an editorial calendar structured throughout the week. So Monday is industry trends and practice management. Tuesdays, I record this office hour segment. Wednesdays, we do our technical articles on financial planning topics for CE. Thursdays, we publish office hours to the blog. And then Fridays are weekend reading. So you don't have to necessarily go nearly that level of depth. You might just start out once or twice a month. But even there, maybe you're going to do it twice a month, every second Friday. So the first one of every month is you sharing your expertise on a technical topic in your, whatever your niche or focal point is for your advisory firm. And then the second is maybe a case study scenario or an article where you interview some other expert that's relevant for your clients. But whatever it is, though, have a structure with deadlines. It's how it gets done. It's how you hold yourself accountable. Tip number 2. Create a standard template for how you write your blogs. I basically am talking about like a standard outline format. You basically, the way they used to teach you in school when you were writing a term paper. Now, the irony, at least for me, is that I sucked at using outlines when I was in school. I was not a good writer. I did not have a lot of structure to what I wrote. I actually failed high school English my junior year because I was that bad of a writer. and figuring out how to structure my thoughts and get them down on paper. Now, as I've learned a couple decades later in my life, outlines really do help actually to give you structure to what you're working on. Now, again, this doesn't have to be overly complex. Almost all the articles you see on our site actually follow the same basic structure. I call it the 3 by 3 by 3 structure. So each article, I scribble down kind of 3 key points I plan to make, and I write those down first. Then for each of the 3 points, I come up with 3 sort of supporting points or supporting statements. So if I was writing about the benefits of Roth conversion, I might start by saying, well, it's driven primarily by changes in tax rates. And then my subpoints might be, well, you have to figure out how to measure your current tax rate and your future tax rate and how phase-outs impact your marginal tax rate. So 3 subpoints under 1 point. Then I'd have 2 more major points, each with their subpoints. And by the time you go through that process and you give a sentence or 2 to each subpoint and you do it for each of the 3 main points, you'll find you've got a 9-paragraph article. Add an introduction or executive summary at the top, add a conclusion at the bottom, and you've written a pretty sizable full-length explanatory article demonstrating your expertise in the topic. Now, you don't have to use that exact structure, and I don't always precisely hold to it because some topics just don't fit it perfectly, but having the structure makes it easier. And I know a lot of you, I think like me, don't like having structure forced on you. I really don't like having structure forced on me. But ultimately, this is one of those lessons that I learned the hard way. The structure actually helps because it gives you a way to formulate your thoughts and kind of slot them into a structure. Makes it much easier to do this, particularly if you're going to repeat it over time, because blogging only works when you do it regularly. Now, tip number 3. People can help polish your writing after the fact. You don't have to get it perfect out of the gate. In other words, basically, hire an editor. A good editor can go through your writing very quickly and polish it up. They'll fix your typos, they'll fix the grammar mistakes, they'll figure out where you're supposed to put the apostrophe, whether you're using it's as a contraction for it is or a plural possessive. They'll fix all of that stuff. The editor sometimes even help tweak the flow and the organization, fix your run-on sentences, and clean up the content so that it's much more readable and in some cases just has more of a professional polish to it. Because remember, the point here is not that you have to be the most amazing, perfectly polished writer. Your goal in the process as an advisor is to share your knowledge, demonstrate your expertise so that people are interested in doing business with you. The editor can make it polished and pretty at the end. And there are actually a lot of editors out there who do this. A lot of them who work specifically with financial advisors. So we'll put links on this to the blog when we post it on Thursday as well. But you can check out folks like Wendy Cook, Susan Weiner, Robert Hutchinson, Stephen Crow, George Miller, Roger Wollner, all of whom do editing or even full writing for financial advisors. You can actually find people who will help you with the writing as well. While others just do the editing work. Now, it's up to you about which one you choose, but recognize that editing is generally very affordable. Someone who actually writes for you tends to be much more expensive. So at least understand you're going to have much more of a financial commitment if you want to say just voice record your articles and have someone else write them versus you take a first crack at writing them, but someone else edits them. But to each their own about their style for creating content. Tip number 4. Capture the questions your clients and prospects are asking you as you talk to them, because that's your next article. This is a big one, because I know one of the biggest roadblocks that I often hear from advisors who are trying to blog is that they can't figure out what to write about. And the answer is you write about whatever your clients and prospects are asking you about. And I mean that pretty literally. If you get a lot of year-end tax questions about Roth conversions, take the most common question, write an answer, publish it. That's your article on end-of-year Roth conversions. And the added benefit now is the next time another client or prospect asks you that question, you can steer them to the expert content you created by you that answers their question, which is faster, easier, and gives them something to share with their friends to refer you. So this doesn't have to be overly complex. I mean, I'm not saying you literally like walk around with a tape recorder to capture everything that your clients and prospects say. I do this in Evernote. So I've got a note in Evernote called Blog Ideas. Anytime I'm having a conversation with someone and I recognize, this is a question I've been asked before, I should write this up as an answer to an article. I'll take a moment at the end of the conversation, jot it down in Evernote. And since I've got Evernote on the phone, I can jot it down immediately after the conversation so you don't forget it. And then when I'm back in the office, it's time to actually write. I load up Evernote. There's my list of article ideas. Now I just have to skim through the list, see which one I'm in the mood to cover that day, and off I go. So I never actually sit down and have to come up with what to write. I sit down and just look through the list of things to write and decide which one I'm going to do that day. Fifth and final tip, make sure you're measuring the right outcomes. One of the biggest subtle challenges I see for financial advisors who try to get started with blogging and social media is that they do it for a little while, they don't see any new immediate client results, and they get frustrated and want to quit. Now, obviously, as an advisor who's trying to grow your business, you're doing this to get clients. So ultimately, that is the outcome you're looking for. But it's a slow process. It's a slow compounding process, even at best. And if you look for results too quickly, it's kind of like the client that says, geez, I've been saving a couple $100s a month for a while now. Why can't I retire yet? Where's my $1 million? And the answer, of course, is that you may be engaged in the right savings habit, but it still takes time for your savings to compound into material wealth. And the same is true for blogging. So what do you measure if you're not going to measure clients? You measure activity. And in this case, activity means how many people are coming to your site and reading your content, and how many people are signing up for your mailing list to get more of your content. And if you look at those numbers, are they trending higher over time? Now, the good news is this is pretty easy to measure. Google Analytics is a fantastic tool for measuring what's going on your website. It's entirely free. You just have to install it and then log in and look. And there are lots of either free or very cheap tools that you can use to build an email list, solutions like MailChimp that start out free and then charge you a little bit only once your list grows. And you can look at that and see, is the number of subscribers going up over time? Now, on a related note, I have to mention, please be certain that you are doing something on your website to try to get people to sign up for your mailing list and not just counting on them to show up and come back from time to time to check out your expertise and maybe do business with you. That was one of the biggest mistakes I made early on, not building a mailing list. So don't make my mistake. You need a call to action on the site that encourages people to sign up, because that's the primary way you turn a one-time reader into a regular reader, because regular readers are the ones that develop enough trust in you to become clients. So as you create articles for your website, that's what you should be tracking. How much activity do you see in terms of traffic and visitors to your site? And is your mailing list growing? And if that continues for 6 or 12 months and you're creating content that shows your expertise, eventually you'll find that activity turns into business. But the odds that like one of the first 5 people who comes to your site and reads your article says, you're brilliant, I want to give you my life savings, that you're going to get a client right away, is not realistic. Building trust takes time. Building trust online takes time. This is a compounding effort. So you're not going to see the results immediately, but you can measure the activity to ensure you're right on the track, or you're on the right track. But the bottom line here is just to recognize that if you're going to try to build a financial advisor blog, having some structure can help. So an editorial calendar, so you know what you're publishing and when, with a deadline to get it done. A standard template for your blog, so you know what you're writing and what you're trying to fill in. A list of ideas that you capture in real time, so you're not stumped with writer's block when the time comes. Getting an editor to help clean up the final article so that you don't have to worry about polishing it all yourself. And measuring the activity of your readership and your mailing list so you can confirm that you're making progress, because early on, it's not just going to be big clients coming out of the clear blue sky. So I hope that helps a little with some food for thought around financial advisor blogging and how to get some traction with your own. This is Office Hours with Michael Kitces, 1 p.m. East Coast times on Tuesdays. Thanks for hanging out, everyone, and have a great day.